Today's session is on what is happening with the current youth. Is it impulsivity or criminal behavior? This session will be taken up by Dr. E. Mohandas sir for the first 40-minute presentation. And after that, there will be 20 minutes of panel discussion, which will be led by Dr. Madhusudan sir and Dr. O.P. Singh from Calcutta. And post that, we will have a question answer session where you can put up your questions as an audience or share your experience in the chat box. So our panel member, we have Dr. Professor M. Madhusudanan sir. He's a professor and HOD of neurology, retired, and Government Medical College and Hospital, Kottayam. A professor and head of department currently at Pushpagiri Medical College, Department of Neurology, Tiruvalla, and is a consultant at PRS Hospital, Karamana. He has been recipient of many awards. He was a winner of Appen Samuel Award for the best research paper. He is recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Newcon, and he is a recipient of the Master Teacher Award at Shine 2015. He was awarded Fellow of Indian Academy of Neurology. Dr. Madhusudan sir. Then the next panelist is Dr. O.P. Singh. He is a professor of psychiatry at West Bengal Medical Education Society. He is the editor of Indian Journal of Psychiatry and consultant psychiatrist at Emory Hospital, Dhakuria, Calcutta. He has published more than 80 papers and 50 books and chapters, and more than 550 citations for the article. He is a former editor at Eastern Journal of Psychiatry, former secretary of ISGMH, and expert to government of West Bengal for mental health program from 2007 to 2011. And with these two panelists, we have the speaker who is delivering the talk today, Dr. E. Mohandas sir. And he is currently a chief consultant in psychology medicine at Sun Medical and Research Center Hospital, Thrissur, Kerala. He is a director and professor of International Institute of Organizational Psychological Medicine. He is an Indian chair, training and skills, UNESCO Bioethics, Asia Pacific, and is the editor of Indian Journal of Psychological Medicine, Psychiatry Management and Update in Kerala Journal of Psychiatry also. He has delivered more than 1,000 presentations and edited 5 books and journals and 75 research papers in the national and international journals. He has been recently awarded by the Bharat Ratna Radhakrishna Gold Medal Award, and he has more than 25 awards, including 5 international awards. He is a member of WPA Psycho Pharmacopsychiatry section, chair of WPA on psychiatry in developing countries. He is a chair of Indian Association of Biological Psychiatry, and is a president IPS IAPP Society for Bipolar Disorders India. So with this, we will start our today's talk. And this today's talk, we will before we start our today's talk, we will have a small opinion poll. So there will be question coming on your screen. The first question is impulsivity associated with criminal activity in today's youth? The option is yes, no, or don't know. You can vote your opinion. You can select one of the choice. Okay, so now I'm ending the poll and sharing the result. So, the result is yes, where 78% have voted that yes, impulsivity is associated with the criminal activity in today's youth. Now we'll move to the second question. Second question is very interesting. I'm launching the poll. In current scenario, are parents controlling the children or children controlling the parents? So you can vote your opinion, and then we will share the results. Ending the poll now and sharing the results. So 87% of the participants have voted for children controlling their parents. That's a great thing. And the third, I'm going to the third and the last opinion poll before we move to the presentation. So are the conduct disorders, borderline personality disorders, drug abuse and impulsivity on the rise? You can vote yes or no. Okay, I'm ending the poll and sharing the results. Okay, so 99% of the participants have said that yes, it is on the rise. It is this incidences are increasing. So now I request Dr. Madhusudan sir to take over the session and give a opening remarks before Dr. Mohan Das sir take over the presentation. Over to Madhusudan sir.
Okay. Good evening to all of you. I think it's already overstood the time. Without wasting time, I invite Professor Mohandas for giving his talk. It's already we are late by about 10 minutes. So Mohandas, please go on. Can you hear me, Mohandas? Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yeah, fine.
Clear?
Yeah, clear.
The slides are clear? Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir. It is appearing. It is clear, sir. It is full screen. We can go ahead, sir.
Now, thank you very much, Dr. Madhusudan, Torrent Pharmaceutical, and those people who have attended here. I am very much aware that it is already a little bit late, 10 minutes late. However, I will try to minimize my talk. What is happening with the current youth? You have already seen from the opinion polls your opinion. Is it impulsive with your criminal behavior? Now, we talk about many generations. X generation who are born between 65 to 80, 81 to 95, it is Y, and the current generation 1996 to 2012. These are the Z generation. And I belong to this generation, baby boomers, but the current generation is this. Now the parents do not feel they spend time with their kids because they are glued to their telephone most of the time and chat with your friends and do anything but look at the social media. And people who can barely remember a word without social media or smartphone. If you lose your mobile phone, many people will even think of committing suicide. This is the generation Z that is comprised of 26% and 22% is millennials. The expectations of generation Z, it is in the middle, that is they are real-time, location-based, adaptive, personalized, and they feel that they are secure. 86% of them use their smartphone multiple times a day. 70% watch more than 2 hours of YouTube content. 88% say people are exploring their sexuality more than in the past. 83% say they want to save for the future. For them, the current youth feel they want to be richer by yesterday, not by tomorrow. 69% watch more than 2 hours of television per day. And 73% want to buy things which are branded. And 71% use Facebook. The biggest problem in young children of this generation is technology addiction, gun violence and school shooting, especially in USA, bullying. But for us, mental health, laziness and drugs. Adults who are born in this thing, drugs, technology addiction, racism, discrimination, and etc. The stress levels are also increased in the generation Z. For example, a whopping 90%, 91% of the generation Z that they experience or physical or emotional symptom due to stress and mental illness in the past year. Mainly depressive symptoms 2/3 higher than the millennial generation, the previous generation. Mental health of generation said, if you just see here, around 45% to 50%, they will have psychiatric problem, rise in suicide rates very high, and drug abuse, etc. Half of generations that people reported, at least one person they know has been addicted or having problem with alcohol or drugs. What is the Indian scenario? 1.3 billion people versus 1.4 billion of China. We will have 472 million by next year. And in India, around 331.77 million internet users are there. By 2022, around 511.89 million will be using internet. Crime is the top domestic issue in India, crime. Then terrorism, corruption at multiple levels. The crime involves a wide range of malicious activities, including cyber extortion, identity theft, credit card frauds, hacking the personal data from the computer, phishing, illegal downloading, and industrial espionage. Now, cyberbullying, extortion, distributing child pornography, and organizing terrorist attack. 457%, 457% cyber crime incidents from 2011 to 2016, according to Information Technology Act 2000. What happens? We have got an individual. This is the nested environment and self-biology that you think yourself. You have got a micro-environment where attachment and relationships. You have got environmental stressors, inequality, racism, social politics, but most important is the fragile families and the attachment relationship. What is the impact? The aberrant parenting and the child maltreatment. Both of them will contribute to the conduct disorder, borderline personality disorder, substance use disorder, and antisocial personality disorder. Impulsivity, aggression, violence, and crime, and depression and suicidality. What about the parenting network? Supposed to be a caregiving. You can go through Natural Review Neurosciences 2019, a beautiful diagram. It involves not only the mentalizing, embodied stimulation, emotional regulation, and the subcortical parenting pathways. The global human paternal caregiving network includes both the subcortical mammalian parenting network and the cortical networks involved in embodied stimulation, mentalization, and emotional regulation. What happens here? Brain areas are part of functional circuits involved in reward or motivation, social and emotional functions, parenting, reproduction, stress, anxiety, and condition. What happens currently when there's a deprived offspring, parental deprivation? There's an altered balance between excitation, inhibition, and impaired communication between orbitofrontal cortex and other cortical region. Now you look at here, the spine density. There's a decreased excitatory input, especially the spine density. There is a increased density of calbinding expressing in the neurons, the GABAergic mechanism. There is an increased density of paralbumin and CRH expressing in the neurons. That means this will result into a decreased corticocortical output. Abuse type specific effects of the developing brain. Suppose there's a parental verbal abuse, what happens? There's an increased gray matter volume in auditory cortex. Verbally, you are hearing it. And decreased integrity of the left arcuate fasciculus. I am not here to talk about the subdivisions of the arcuate fasciculus, that is another talk by itself. Suppose you witness a domestic violence, there is a decreased gray matter volume in the visual areas, V2, and decreased integrity in the left inferior longitudinal fasciculus, that's the white matter. Childhood sexual abuse, decreased gray matter volume in the visual association cortex and thinning of the somatosensory cortex. Maltreatment associated changes in the functional connectivity, you will focus on the medial orbital frontal cortex, anterior cingulate, amygdala, precuneus. This is a part of default network. Maltreatment is associated with reduced coupling of the hippocampus with the medial orbital prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate, these two regions. But increased positive or negative coupling of the hippocampus with the posterior cingulate is a part of default network, your mind wandering, or precuneus and lateral prefrontal cortex. But there is a reduced top-down regulation of amygdala by prefrontal regions. I call it amygdalization. That means you will be more sensitive to emotional thing, and you will usually the subcortical structures will really do a coup over the frontal regions. Now the current generation is the connectomics era. What happens? Child maltreatment is associated with a marked decrease in the centrality of left anterior cingulate. Centrality, we talk in connectomics, and there is a substantial decrease in primary and secondary connections. Maltreatment is associated with increased centrality of anterior insula and right precuneus. Right precuneus, default network system. Now, suppose somebody develops a conduct disorder, there is a lower activity in brain network comprising of amygdala, anterior insula, anterior cingulate, striatum, especially the ventral striatum, superior frontal gyrus, fusiform gyrus, your face identification area, and superior temporal gyrus, especially in children with conduct disorder, which will affect the emotional recognition, emotion regulation, empathy and interoception, reward processing, response inhibition, face processing, and perception of biological motion. Conduct disorder, you have got genetic and environmental factors. The neural decreased amygdala responsiveness will reduce emotional empathy. It will produce antisocial behavior and callous unemotional traits. If there is an increased amygdala response, it produces more threat sensitivity. It produces threat-based reactive aggression or impulsivity and anxiety. And both of them, you have got an impaired decision making. What about borderline personality disorder? In borderline personality disorder, there is a distorted self-thinking and thoughts about others. Medial prefrontal cortex, temporoparietal junction, posterior cingulate, and precuneus. Hypermentalizing about the self and others. Enhanced connectivity between the amygdala and midline structures, and deficient reasoning about the mental state of lower activity in the midline structures and reduced activity of superior temporal sulcus, non-reflective, intense sharing of others' emotion, hyperactive insula. Go through this journal, Nature Review Disease Primers 2018, beautiful article. And also, in borderline personality disorder, you will have non-suicidal, self-mutilating behavior. It is because of the negative functional coupling between amygdala and medial prefrontal cortexes, and enhanced coupling between posterior insula and dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. That means your decision making will go awry. Impulsivity is because of the alteration in the reward and control circuits, especially in the ventral striatum and prefrontal areas. Affect regulation, especially affect regulation circuit, and impairments of coordinated activities between social cognition and emotional regulation. So we talk about two types of violence. One is impulsivity, another is instrumental aggression. Impulsive aggression is a hot-headed response to a perceived threat or provocation that is usually seen in current day children, especially in the conduct disorder and also the borderline personality. Instrumental aggression, it is usually premeditated, goal-oriented, and it is cold-blooded. Sometimes you can get the combination. Reactive aggression, which you usually see in borderline personality and conduct disorder, associated with a history of abuse, negative emotionality and impulsivity, accompanied by anger, rage, and hostility, occurs in response to frustration or a perceived provocation, motivated by the presence of thrilling, unpleasant affect states. Regions involved are the affect processing, impulse control, and emotional making. The psychotherapy, some of the drugs might work here. But instead, proactive aggression does not invariably involve negative affect states such as anger or rage, typically initiated by the offender rather than provoked, explicitly motivated by an expectation of obtaining something of value, an object, a reward, a power, status, or social dominance. It is positively associated with psychopathy, physical aggression, and violent offenses. So see the cycle. Victimization, trauma-related disorders, anxiety, PTSD, depression, even dissociative state, reactive aggression. But in appetitive aggression, violent environment, appetitive aggression, and no guilt feeling, violent criminal activities, classical antisocial personality. There is a complex gateway to aggression. Increased aggression is mainly because of the ventromedial hypothalamus, that is ventrolateral region, medial preoptic area, nucleus accumbens, and ventral tegmental area. However, decreased aggression is done medial prefrontal cortex, lateral habenula. This is a region, lateral habenula is really gaining so much interest. I had the chance to present abroad on lateral habenula, and your dorsal raphe nucleus and androventral paraventricular area. But here, the ventral tegmental area and amygdala, especially amygdala, it is a bidirectional effect in aggression. What happens? There is a stimulus, can be provocative. There's a sensory distortion after drugs, alcohol, or metabolic disturbance. Sensory processing is defaulted. Sensory deficit, hearing or visual loss. You may not appreciate what you have heard or listened. You have got a developmental stress or trauma, that is a negative schema. Your cultural, social factors regarding the perception of aggression, early information processing or cognitive appraisal, but sometimes in paranoid ideation, cognitive impairment and paranoid ideation, there is a top-down brakes, it is suppressed, bottom-up drive is activated. So in social information processing network or SIPN, involves the detection mode, cognitive regulation mode, and affective mode. The impulsive aggression, ventromedial prefrontal cortex, dorsomedial prefrontal cortex, anterior insula, periaqueductal gray, hypothalamus, and amygdala. Now, amygdala is very mysterious. While the basolateral complex is the primary locus of sensory input, the central nucleus of amygdala is the output. There's an intercalated cellular masses. They usually has got an inhibitory control of the amygdala activity. It is GABAergic. The volume of left dorsal amygdala specifically was negatively correlated with lifetime history of aggression. But in impulsive aggression, both right and left ventral amygdala is correlated. However, in right amygdala, volume were found to be negatively correlated with a measure of proactive aggression or psychopathy or antisocial behavior. Hypothalamic area located in the posteromedial region, that is called area that includes midpoint of anterior commissure or posterior commissure line, the anterior border of the mammillary bodies and beginning of the aqueduct. That produces a triangular zone. It is called the triangle of Sano. And hypothalamus is more activated individuals with aggressive features that domestic violence offenders present lower metabolism in posterior hypothalamus. This is Sano. He's a neurosurgeon. He is no more. He is a Japanese person. He talked about two circuits, ergotropic circuit and prophotropic circuit. This ergotropic circuit is the triangle of Sano. According to him, aggressive behavior is a result of unbalanced condition of the circuit with ergotropic circuit dominating. That is in the triangle of Sano. Aggression-related information, ventromedial hypothalamus, ventrolateral region. It will impact upon medial preoptic area, lateral hypothalamus, inhibitory effect, that is GABAergic, and that inhibition will go to the dopaminergic level and it produces the impact on the dopamine that is excitatory. Hypothalamus and basolateral and bed nucleus of stria terminalis can potentially activate the dopamine neurons in the ventral tegmental area through a disynaptic disinhibitory mechanism. This is the disynaptic. Ventromedial hypothalamus, especially the ventrolateral region, projects heavily to medial preoptic area and lateral hypothalamus, which are all enriched in GABAergic cells and preferentially target onto GABAergic cells in the ventral tegmental area. So that inhibition will increase the dopaminergic activity and noradrenergic action will. Activation of the ventromedial hypothalamus, especially posterior, glutamatergic cells presumably activate the lateral hypothalamus and medial preoptic cells, in turn inhibit GABAergic cells and activate dopamine neurons in the ventral tegmental area. Also, nucleus of stria terminalis also receives aggression-related information, relates signal to ventral tegmental area dopamine neuron through a disinhibitory mechanism. What happens to orbitofrontal cortex in aggression? It is the orbitocentral nucleus of amygdalar activity. Smaller left orbitofrontal cortex diameter volume has been shown to be related to greater levels of right aggression. Anterior cingula modulates how the basal nucleus processes sensory input. Reduced anterior cingulate volume have been associated with increased aggression. Trait aggression, default network is involved precuneus and elicited aggression post-central. Gaius also recent reports are suggesting in 2019. Go through this article in Brain Structure and Function. Cognitive control network in aggressive individual comprise the right Rolandic operculum, RO, and mid-cingulate cortex, precentral gyrus, and precuneus. In provoked healthy subject, across experimental aggressive experiment, left post-central gyrus was consistently involved. So, especially including anterior cingulate, prefrontal cortex, especially medial prefrontal cortex, other areas are also involved. Now, what happens in the criminal brain? Anterior cingulate in criminals, this anterior cingulate, with low activity have higher reoffending. What happens to the ventropedial prefrontal cortex? 11% smaller and less active in habitual offenders. And amygdala shrunken and less active in teenage aggression and conduct disorder. Brain areas which are involved, especially in antisocial personality disorder, it is basically because it default moral decision making functioning. Moral decision is the yellow colored, the red one anterior cingulate, and here the temporal lobe you can see they are involved in antisocial behavior. That means lesion temporally associated with criminal behavior are functionally connected to regions activated by the moral decision making. That is your parenting, your home environment, your peer group influence, and your drugs, alcohol, etc., and value-based decision making. And that also some of the regions with empathy and cognitive control, antisocial, no empathy control. I think I will finish with a take-home message. What is needed is a good parenting, strengthen moral cognition networks, meaning you have to have when I talked on the neuroscience of yoga, I have talked about the yamas and niyamas. You have to have some self-discipline. You have to have the self-hygiene. You have to have some morals. That is the moral cognition network. Healthy environment. Select the right peer group. And say no to drugs. Favorable genetic environment that is not under your control. With comfortable epigenetic rubric, yes, little bit of dietary, this thing. Non-vegetarians are supposed to be more aggressive. There are correlation with sirtuins and others. So if you have got these good things, you will be less aggressive and you will be less criminal behavior tendencies. Networks including ventromedial prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate amygdala hippocampal complex are involved apart from regions implicated in default mode network and central executive network. Dysfunctional parenting and child maltreatment can lead to conduct disorder, oppositional defined disorder, substance use disorder, borderline personality disorder manifested by impulsivity and aggression. Extremely sorry because I have to go a little bit faster because of time constraint. And this is my last slide. I think enough of verbal aggression from my side. Thank you very much. And back to Madhu for his comments.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Mohandas, for your excellent lecture. It was really very informative. And in fact, I couldn't follow some of your neuroanatomic structures involved in the aggression and things like that. But anyway, it's a very, very, very informative talk. Thank you once again, Dr. Mohandas. I think we'll go for the questions.
We can have Dr. OP Singh's comment.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry I'm late, but as usual, it is excellent presentation by Dr. Mohandas, which is a reward to our brain circuits. And listening to his lectures lead to, of course, dopamine release in our brain. So we are very happy. And the things which he has elucidated, which I can follow, is very interesting. That moral values and upbringing, which in fact, when we talk of science, sometimes we say that these are not important. But these are the things which are important more and in the upbringing. And also the question of aggression, whether it is protective, when it is pathological, also depend on society. So how the brain distinguishes from these two, and aggression in sex. So this I will ask again Dr. Mohandas to comment on all these things before other questions come. It is a wonderful presentation, and it is an honor to be here and listen to him.
Thank you, OP.
Yes, sir.
Sir, there are questions. Can we take up the questions, sir?
Yes, please ask the questions.
Yeah, so we have Dr. Suresh, Dr. Kota Suresh. We request Dr. Suresh to unmute and share his question. Yeah, Dr. Suresh.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Very
Yes.
nice presentation. Sir, how much specific and sensitive are these findings? How many false positives or false negatives are going to be there in this MRI brain findings related to aggression? I just wanted to clarify that issue, sir.
Usually brain imaging, these are all fashionable images. Sensitivity is reasonably okay, but specificity is questionable. But however, the research is going on. We have gone from the macro scale, the brain areas, to the meso scale, that's the circuit, then the micro scale, that is the connectomics level. We haven't reached anywhere, but there are some suggestions, and especially, I have just told the triangle of Shannon, his experimental approach to he was a neurosurgeon. As far as aggression is concerned, it was really productive and it was beneficial. Dr. Madhu can even add, he's a neurologist. He's a reputed neurologist and a teacher of excellence. And OP also can contribute.
Yes,
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
what you have said is very true. What is, as Dr. Suresh sir has asked, basically a lot of the findings in psychiatry are not specific, as you have already mentioned. So these areas are involved, and depending on now the relative balance between different circuits, we are going to get symptoms. So they may not be very apparent on fMRI, but newer techniques are there, optokinetic or optogenetics, which is we can visualize single neuron now. So maybe in future, very near future, we can able to visualize each circuit. Otherwise, the MRI for our purpose is still very crude method to understand. But what is important is that there are MRI abnormalities which are found. In particularly, we classify now the externalizing and internalizing disorders. There is some difference, and aggression being externalizing disorder. For that, there is lots of specificity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
The next question is from Dr. Usha Nandini. We request Dr. Usha Nandini to unmute and share her question. Okay, her question is there a role for therapy-induced neuroplasticity? And if yes, then it can help intervene in any of these aggression-related circuits. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. Psychotherapy, different models of psychotherapy, the neuroplastic effects, etc. I think I have already talked 2 or 3 times the neurobiology of psychotherapy and what really happens in psychotherapy, especially in borderline dialectical behavior therapy. Even CBT also can function. It will produce neuroplastic effects. It is documented. But today, I don't have time to explain the neurobiology of psychotherapy. We will take upon another time. I will share my slides.
Thank you, sir. Then the next question is from Dr. Bharti. Dr. Bharti, ma'am, you can ask your question.
Yeah, is my voice audible?
Yeah,
Yeah,
ma'am.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Yeah, it's as usual, it's a very new and a difficult topic also, and I'm glad I'm able to listen to you, sir. But my question is, in many cases of passive aggressive behavior, I've seen that, there is a lot of bickering, marital disharmony in the parents, which can lead to, child showing the child, he or she, showing their own impulsivity and anger. It's almost like a displacement on someone else because they can't confront the parents. And growing up, it can show on the either the spouse or on the children or in the people who work with them. And this displacement, is it permanent or temporary? Because the changes you have shown in the brain circuits, is it temporary or permanent? If it is permanent, they may need the medication lifelong, isn't it?
yeah, it's a good question. Effective parenting may be because of the marital discord or of the alcoholic father, etc. Plenty of documentation is there. When the child grows, at that time itself, the brain rewiring starts. When the rewiring starts, the child may get driven into, initially it can be treated or it can be done with psychotherapy, counseling parents, or changing the environment, and even with some of the drugs that we use, anti-impulsivity, which if somebody asks, I can answer also. But the problem is, these people some of the people might get, apart from the impulsivity people, many people will tend to sometime bipolarity, some people will go to psychotic dimensions, and some people classically antisocial personality disorder. And it depends upon the longevity. If you do early intervention, I think things can be done well. Otherwise, I think we have to pray and see how far we can do it.
Sir,
Okay,
can
thank
I
you.
add
Yeah,
one
you
thing?
should.
So basically, in early childhood, if parents are having early childhood adversity and the parents' behavior leads to expression of vasopressin more than oxytocin. So that leads to changes in the brain where patient has mistrust, patient is not able to trust, more aggressive children. So that is directly the result of childhood environment. And as sir has already said, any intervention, psychotherapeutic and others, is very effective in changing the brain when it is growing. But when the circuits are fixed, then it becomes very difficult to change. And then the treatment may be lifelong or whatever form it may be.
Can I add OP Singh?
Yes, sir.
You have
You
talked
are-
about basically, I didn't want to really reflect upon. That is called moral affiliation networks, where the oxytocin, vasopressin relationship is there. I purposefully didn't want to focus on it. Madhu can add if he wants.
No, it's okay. Nothing more to add.
Yeah. Next question is Dr. Wadhwani. Yeah, Dr. Wadhwani can ask the question.
Well, good evening. Very nice
Yes.
presentation. And I have a question that the child who is very aggressive behavior, they are not ready to accept their behavior is aggressive. Then how to take them to a psychotherapy or psychiatrist or a counselor?
they don't want to come. And the parents also don't want to take up. It's a very big challenge we see regularly. We have got, we have to motivate through some source, through the teachers or others. Otherwise, suppose the child starts very aggressive, and if he makes if he breaks the law, sometimes that also can happen. And indirectly, we have to try and others. And I don't want anyone to give spurious medicine and bring them. Initially, you talk to the parents, teachers, well-wishers, try to get them evaluated, not only the child, but the parents, the family as such. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, the next question is by Dr. Sukhamani. Sukhmaran, sir, you can unmute and you can ask your question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohandas, for your wonderful presentation.
Sukumar.
Yes. How are you?
Fine, I cannot see you bad.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for your today's presentation. Yeah, I want to suggest you one thing. We have got a very fast social evolution, a fast development of telecommunication, science, technology, fast modern life, flooding of information, modern gadgets like computers. So a gulf is created. For example, we have the one theory of blood pressure and raised blood sugar is the effect of fight or flight. So our past adjustment with fight or flight is with the raising of blood pressure, increased heart rate, raise of pressure, etc. That does not fit with the modern age. So we are having a problem. Like that, a gulf between a biological evolution and a sociological evolution. Sociological evolution goes fast, whereas biological evolution takes its own time. So with that gulf, the younger generation is put on risk because of that gulf. So their younger generation is having more stress and anxiety. So they are expressing this increased stress and anxiety with these symptoms. That is one I like to suggest to you, and you want to have your valuable opinion. Another thing is that you have mentioned about vegetarianism and docile or mild behavior, and non-vegetarianism with more violent behavior. But in this section, I will like to suggest one point. Our Adolf Hitler, he was a perfect vegetarian. He was very violent, very that history, you know. But have you got any study about vegetarianism with docile behavior?
Yeah, Sukumar, most of the things that I endorse your views, especially the fight, flight, fright, the concepts of the basic thing and health. I will not elaborate because of the time constraint. But we have to live with the society. And it is an evolving generation, and we have to really have a balance. And we have to have a moderation of everything. We cannot forget what our traditions are there, our practices are there, and etc. etc. Regarding vegetarianism and non-vegetarianism, there are articles, especially vegetarianism, can increase your longevity, and especially because of the increased sirtuins levels. And it has been documented the aggressive behavior is more in non-vegetarians, and some of the antisocial articles are there. And exceptions may be there. Exceptions cannot be the rule. And that there are some studies, you need not endorse it, it may not be true. I have just suggested it. Okay, there may be many vegetarians who may be aggressive. There may be so many non-vegetarians who may be very good. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
There is another
Dr.
question
Bharti
from my
has
side.
another question. Yeah.
Yeah. At times, these impulsivity also can lead to suicides that we are seeing very commonly nowadays in the newspapers. Like, there are people tend to get impulsive and then commit suicide, or they may become aggressive and then beat or kill someone else. And in many cases like this, what we see is they're very nice outsidely, and everyone think they are almost like godly people, helping others, trying to be very nice and polite to others, but it's only the spouse and the families which are disturbed. I've seen a couple of doctors also being like this. The lady is so good to others, whereas at home she's something else altogether. So in such cases, what are the drugs that you usually think that can help in such cases?
Yeah, a very, very, very good question. Especially the parental problems and everything, it can produce aggression, maybe aggression directed inwards, that is suicide, aggression turned outside, it can be homicide or even other physical violence. But usually, apart from psychotherapy, some drugs people are suggesting is low dose of atypical antipsychotics, especially quetiapine. They suggest, but my experience is, especially SSRI, especially my favorite is fluoxetine, especially the impulsive aggression. The reactive aggression. I had a very good results, even in borderline personality disorder. In borderline personality disorder, people say evidence is more for atypical antipsychotic. But my experience, I go with SSRI, especially fluoxetine. That is my experience. And apart from your non-pharmacological techniques, OP and Madhu can add.
No, sir. I go for fluoxetine or olanzapine.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Madhu, will you start? Will you start carbamazepine? Sometimes low dose of carbamazepine. Sometimes.
And it can be, sometimes they can be useful as well.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So next question is from Dr. Paresh Shah. Yeah, Dr. Paresh Shah can ask his question.
Yeah, Paresh. Paresh, unmute, man. Please unmute.
Okay.
Ah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I cannot see your beautiful face, man.
Wait.
Yeah, Paresh.
Yes, hi.
How are you?
How are you?
Fine.
Right. Yeah, Dr. Mohandas, it was very nice presentation. My question is there any changes in suicidal patient in the brain? Any changes in neurocircuit or neurotransmitter or neuroanatomy so that we can predict the suicidal patient from the brain whenever patient is not communicative regarding the suicidal thoughts? Any comments?
Yes. I think let you suggest Torrent to talk, ask me to talk on suicidal brain. What the white matter and gray matter connectivity, that is another talk. Especially John Mann and others have done, and even the microRNA studies are there, especially in suicide. And I will not comment much on the circuits now because of the time constraint. I do have my slides.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So we request if anybody has a question, they can unmute and they can ask a question in this forum.
One last question. How about an SSRI plus atypical antipsychotic low dose in borderline personality disorder?
Yes.
Together?
Yes, you can. Only problem is you have to be a little bit careful about the olanzapine fluoxetine combination, as O.P. Singh has told. I also like that combination, but the problem with olanzapine, you have to be careful of the weight gain, etc., that you have to be careful. Otherwise, fine.
On.
Yes. Oh, Gambira from Sri Lanka.
Can I make a comment?
How are you, man?
Good. Excellent as usual.
Thank you, thank you. Any questions?
Comments, sir.
Yes.
Please, sir.
What is the role of the parents and what are the mechanisms of epigenetics in reducing the impulsivity and criminality in youth?
Yeah. I have already just talked about the epigenetic factors. Epigenetic factors is multitudes. Apart from your nutrition, which I have told, there are so many epigenetic factors that is called, especially the methylation problem and acylation problem. That is why histone deacylating drugs, some people are trying, but these are all theoretical level. I think we can have one discussion on epigenetics in some time, or I can send you my discourse on epigenetics. I think you have it. I think you have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have my presentation on epigenetics. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Mohandas?
Yes.
I am the sole neurologist. I mean, the whole lot of psychiatrists here.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add one point.
Yes.
This sort of aggressive behavior and personality disorders can all occur due to organic neurological conditions.
Absolutely.
And they can present initially aggressive behavior can be the initial manifestation of certain tumors in the septal area, medial temporal lobe, and in the corpus callosum. And many degenerative diseases can start with aggressive tendency and psychotic behavior. For example, Huntington disease, and classical example can present with aggressive tendency, and frontotemporal dementias. So it's a must that before taking into a primary psychiatric disease, you should look for the red flags. You should make you suspect or some warranted investigation like MRI, EEG, etc., etc. Nowadays, many autoimmune encephalitis, newer things are coming up. They present purely with aggressive behavior and psychosis, which can totally mislead the psychiatrist. They may be in the psychiatry ward. Only the diagnosis come up later on. Just to remind or completion's sake, I'm just telling because I'm happy to be the only neurologist here.
Yeah, Madhu, that is absolutely correct. You are on the point. I just discussed generally. I didn't talk about the etiological factors as such, organic factors. You are absolutely correct. And these red flags that you have to know. And sometimes even the autoimmune condition, especially in NMDA, anti-NMDA, encephalite patients, we had severe aggression. They are presented in bipolar type of patients. And we had patients. And I think Torrent is even, they might be asking me to present on anti-NMDA encephalitis in my series sooner than later. And I fully agree with you, the tumors, etc., you are absolutely on the dot. And mind you, all the participants, Madhu is a superb clinician, neurologist, a great teacher. Thank you, Madhu.
Thank you, Mohandas.
Tumors, I can understand that, we can do the CT scan or MRI, but in regular practice, how do we rule out autoimmune case of aggression or brain problem?
May I ask that answer the question, Dr. Mohandas?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes it's extremely difficult. But a subacute, there's a 2-3 take-home points. If the evolution is subacute evolution over a period of weeks to months, no past history in the past, no family history, a preceding fever, may not be there along with that, maybe 2-3 weeks back, and atypicalities, some autonomic phenomena, or it's not truly fitting with any primary psychiatric disorder, you have to keep this possibility in mind. Sometimes even MRI, CSF study, even EEG can be normal in the initial phases. The only abnormality may be mild slowing in the EEG, which may take it as maybe within normal range. But only follow-up can tell this is not the way the patient is behaving. You put psychotic trust, not improve, it worsens. So there are other telltale signs and symptoms suggesting an autoimmune encephalitis, about which I'm not going now. So for example, anti-NMDA, you find the classic lower facial dyskinesias, paroxysmal autonomic phenomena, hyperventilation, those things, catatonic phenomena. These things are there, which are typical of anti-NMDA. But only thing is when the things are not going in the way you suspect, as an ordinary psychiatric patient behave, especially with the subacute evolution, I think always keep this in the possibility back of the mind. Dr. Mohandas, do you agree with that?
Yeah, you are absolutely correct. Even anti-NMDA encephalitis, they have put the staging of the MRI staging 1, 2, 3, 4. But doesn't mean anything. For a psychiatrist, as you have rightly told, a history of fever and the facial twitchings, I mean, these can even they can present with catatonia. I mean, these are all important, and otherwise we will miss the patient. You have to have a neurological consultation, even your studies, the classical ones they say, but only 50% will be positive. Earlier they have told that it is all good, but whenever we send for the antibodies, unfortunately, we will get a mixed picture, and we are nowhere. But we start with the usual our steroids, parenteral steroids, and let us see. And many patients we had, children, they can present only with seizures. We had, you are absolutely correct.
Yeah, next question is from Dr. Parul Sharma. She can unmute and ask question.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, in borderline personality disorder, we start lithium, but how effective is it in controlling the impulsivity?
Yeah, it's a good question. Are you a psychiatrist or a neurologist?
I am a psychiatrist.
You would have heard of Hago Pakistan. You have heard? Pakistan, you have heard?
Yes. Yes,
that
for bipolar.
That gentleman is in United States, but he was born in Armenia. And he doesn't like the term borderline personality disorder. According to him, that is emotionally unstable people, they are all borderlines. Okay, but some of the people with so-called borderline personality, if you have to rule out, is it a bipolar spectrum patient? Those people only will improve with the lithium. Otherwise, classical borderline personality disorder, we don't venture to put on lithium. But if it is, you can have an anti-aggressive property if it is a bipolar spectrum. Yes. OP?
Yes, sir.
Anything to add?
No, sir.
Yes. Any question?
Yeah, I think all the questions are addressed, and we seek the panelists to give their final concluding remarks before we conclude the session.
I think Professor O.P. Singh can give the concluding remarks.
Sir, please.
I'm a neurologist. I'm not in this field. You please go ahead, sir.
No, sir, it is always, there's no concluding remark because already we have discussed a lot of things. As usual, it has been enlightening presentation, and we have psychiatrists as you are neurologists, but we have to know a lot of neurology nowadays, and this is very important for us to understand and have telltale signs of organicity so that we can identify this and manage this. And sir, Dr. Mohandas has been always pioneer in neurobiology and neurocircuits. So this is just an extension of his work. And I think that all the people have also enjoyed it and also learned. So with this, I thank all of you.
Thank you, Mohandas, for excellent lecture. I always wondered, how could you remember all these neurochemical abnormalities and the pathways in the brain? I couldn't remember many of these pathways, but you could remember those things.
Professor Singh.
Yeah.
That's for your excellent lecture.
Gambira.
Yes, Professor Singh.
Panelist.
If you want to be a good psychiatrist, you have to be a better neurologist.
Okay, Chindan.
I request Mohandas sir to give the key take-home points. And
No, I have already given the key take-home. Thank you very much. Already time up. I am getting so many telephone calls I am not taking now. And thank you very much, Dr. Madhu, and Opi, Gambira, and all others, all my friends, all over India and other parts, and the Torrent group. Hope to see you in the next program. Chindan,
yes, sir.
are we talking next time, next week?
So it is on the neuroscience of hysteria.
Hysteria. Next Saturday, we can meet on neuroscience of hysteria. Are they hysterical? Are they fainting? Or you say that it's functional? Is it functional? Or is there anything in the brain? Can we help them? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir.
Good night.